way I remember spawning into this world, like I remember distantly being like a happy child, but you know how you only really gain consciousness as you like go into your teens, as you mature a bit. Like I remember just like for as long as I could actually like think critically, I'd been depressed. Like since like 13 onward, I swear down, it's like I just emerged consciousness and it just came with depression, basically. That's how I felt. So I went, and it was very heavy. I used to call it like manic depression. So I think so this goes for just everybody in general. I believe, I hope to educate you now today with many tips, tricks, methods, techniques, and awakenings, and all based on my own experience of how to deal with the mental bullshit. Have you noticed that most suffering is created in the mind, if not all of it? Like, it goes super deep, and we're going to get into it. So I recommend you stick around. So anyway, like I say, when I was really young, just so happened that this ego, came with depression, apparently. What would I define as depression? It was just like constant like ruminating negative thinking, insecurities, bad health, and so yeah, like a whole hodgepodge of like shit stuff, and like so I went searching. I was like, why am I depressed? Because I like finding out the answer. I can't, like, this is the one thing, like, yeah, I still suffer from it somewhat. Like, I still have demons that arise every now and then. But, like, I can't sit there for too long without eventually, like, trying to find the answer or some shit. Like, I'm always somewhat proactive eventually. And normally, if I'm depressed, eventually I just get to the end of it. And I'm like, I really cannot be fucked to be depressed anymore and take this shit so seriously. But anyway, I went on the fucking computer and I was like, why is man depressed? And it was like, your serotonin is produced in your gut. This is a very deep topic. I released many health lectures in the past. I got the main one on rumble.com that I'll leave linked in the description because YouTube removed it because of COVID misinformation. And basically, for example, I worked at the co-op until about a week ago. The co-op is the local retail, and many villages only have access to the co-op, like unless you're going to go travel, get a bus or drive or whatever. And then like everything in the co-op, like we spray all of the produce with poison. So I'm like confident, I would happily say that basically 99% of what is in the local retail is polluted. Even the healthiest food, they deceive you on the packaging. Like you often think is healthy. I really recommend you educate yourself about health. Because reflecting, when I was on magic mushrooms, which we'll get to in a bit, before, I was like, yeah, like my whole depression is just like a story that I believed in. And the reason I bring that up now is because it was just like, look, you're a body, yeah? It can think if it wants. It doesn't have to. And if you can tune into that, that's really weird. Normally I can't do that really well. That's basically the key of meditation. That's really weird how sometimes it's hard for me to get into it, but my nose is fucked. Someone kicked the fuck out of me yesterday in an alleyway. That's irrelevant, but yeah, my nose is hurting. So I said my depression is just a story that I believed in, and that the reason you should educate yourself on health is because you got to understand, you're like a machine, yeah? It can think, it can make decisions, it can tell someone to do something in the mind dimensions, and then it's a body, it's very multi-dimensional, and then like, with heavy observation and meditation, you can basically learn, or psychedelics even, that like, basically, one of the most fundamental things is I can direct you to a teacher called Eckhart Tolle, or Eckhart Tolle, they call him, and he wrote the book, The Power of Now. And he leads to spiritual enlightenment, and this is ultimately, my depression led me down the rabbit hole of spiritual enlightenment, and he speaks of how most are a slave to their internal dialogue. And basically the mind is thinking all the time. It's like we basically get enslaved by our minds instead of using it as a tool. We kind of, if you try and stop thinking, you'll notice you basically cannot, which is why I was taken aback when a minute ago I just stopped thinking like that. And to be fair, normally that was really difficult for me until I had one mushroom trip. So I'll get into the psychedelics a bit in a minute, but I was taking the psychedelics, which, just for short, they can be used for therapy. They've been used by ancient traditions since the beginning of time, and they reveal the subconscious mind, and you can deal with your traumas and neuroses. But anyway, I was taking a dose. I think it was about 5 grams, and I was led there having many insights about what one was this? This was just, normally I have like somewhat bad trips, but they're more uncomfortable because they like reveal uncomfortable truths and then they straighten you out over a long time. They can, they're not for everybody. So I was doing, and then I was having all these insights, and I was like, when is this going to stop, man? Just insights, like I'm just thinking. And then I just thought, think or don't think. Those are your two options. So here you are now, think or don't. That's all you got. And that's the most fundamental shift. And then when I've done that, while I was on the shrooms, it was just, that was it. That was like the last thing I thought for ages. And I say this because when I was saying before that my depression was just like a story that I believed in, like your whole life is like an illusion that you believe in. If you get into like the really metaphysical stuff, if you really become like a master meditator, maybe dabble in psychedelics, and this is all like a metaphysical kind of stance on it. And I'm not advocating you do psychedelics before I get cancelled, but it's just like, when I was really depressed for months, I was just like, here the mind would just tell me the story and I go, yeah man, this is so shit, but like, that's often like the main, I understand that are like legitimate problems, but like, especially when you look at some of these enlightened masters and shit, bro, like, there's no external circumstance that will penetrate their fucking solid mindset. Psychology is key. It's like, when it gets into the deep metaphysics, I see life as like a mindscape. It's like the mind of God, and you can learn to navigate it. It's really about the mind. That's what Hobson said. I've referred to this video. If Hobson has a video, I'll leave it linked below, about update from Hobson. He's a rapper, and he said he was really depressed, and he lost everything. He was just staying indoors, eating dominoes, creating his own hell, and then he went to like Thailand. And they fucking like done all this like mad healing stuff on him, and done all like this weird yoga and breath work, I think, and they taught him all about his machine basically, and then he becomes somewhat more enlightened. There's different levels to awakening, and depression and mental health can definitely lead to spirituality and awakening. So and we'll get more into that. So that's the rabbit hole. If you're not familiar with what my channel is, I go a lot deeper into the spirituality and the metaphysical side of things. And that is really the path of healing and the path of health. So, yeah, there's that. So there's the most fundamental reason why you're depressed. Actualize.org goes very deep into this. He goes, I was on mushrooms and I was like, am I depressed? This was before the depression began, like nearly over a year ago probably. And I was like, oh God, am I becoming depressed again? It's such a stupid question, because that literally creates it. If you say, am I depressed? You create the question. And then you answer it, yes. Well then obviously, sure, if you believe that. Everything is just what you believe it is. But there's some like other metaphysical side of things anyway. But then, so that's like the fundamental core is, yeah, so I was on mushrooms, sorry, and I went to find a video by actualize.org, and it was like, the reason and he goes, the reason you're depressed is because your psychology sucks. And I just burst out laughing. I was like, yeah, you're right. So mainly look into enlightenment. Research Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is on YouTube. I'll leave him linked below. Oh, my nose is killing, man. What a cunt. He chipped my tooth as well. Cuntish. Need to get that shit. So yeah, that's like the enlightenment side. It's basically, you're a machine. Check out actualize.org. What is actualize.org? The big picture of personal development. Basically, no one gave you an instruction manual for your machine, and that is the key. You need to become a heavy observer of how the thoughts are creating the suffering, and look into the meditation and that. But that's like the deep shit anyway. Like, maybe you haven't got the energy to do that. Do you just want some practical tips to like actual habits? Now, I have been slacking heavily on most of these, but it's not relevant. I've confirmed, and I know, because I've done them a lot in the past, that these are very fundamental to your well-being. And of course it is. It's just simple. Like, obviously, off the top of my head, I don't even need to say it. Just exercise. There's many studies that has been done that shows exercise is just as good, if not better, than SSRIs and antidepressants. Now, don't get me started on antidepressants. That shit's irrelevant, man. Do not take them tablets. The pharmaceutical industry profit from you being weak and reliant, and the grid that we live on is very promoting of toxic, like, are you sure, like, there's mental illness and there's physical illness, and for the example of physical illness, I think it was, to quote Connor Murphy, or I think he quoted someone else, it's like, are you sure it's the bugs floating around out there, or are you sure it's not the toxic radiation you're exposed to, the toxic relationship, the toxic perpetual fear state you're in, and the TV and the stuff you're watching on there, and the radiation from there? Sure it's not the toxic food, the polluted drinks, and the refined sugars that you start your children on? Sure it's not, you don't think it's weird that there's like multiple seasonal, like there's like 4 a year? What we got? Birthdays, Halloween, Christmas and Easter, and largely centered around just buying fucking pollution and ingesting it and self-harming. You sure that's not why you've got mental issues? Because our culture would like to demonize you, basically. They're going to tell you it's you, and that you just need to get a job and like stop being a dickhead, and there's nothing, like, you know, just, we live in the first world, how are you so entitled, it's you. I think a lot of us have like trauma from our culture, I think. Like, you don't actually realise like trauma, because it's quite like deep and neurotic and psychological. Like, often people grow up in houses and they believe it's like trauma free, and like, I think everyone has trauma, to be honest. It's quite difficult, like, it's not to blame anyone, but it's like, I grew up and I didn't really think I really had much trauma, but as I started reflecting on like the kind of vibration that was going through the house, of like the kind of energy that the people were like reflecting and stuff, like a house where no one knows how to love themselves, and they kind of project it, or like there's loads of arguing all the time, and you don't really think you have trauma. And that's something that can be useful with the psychedelics, is they like reveal your subconscious mind, and it can take a long time to kind of understand that, because you kind of accept wherever you get born into, and then maybe those in the household kind of reinforce like that everything's normal, but it can take a lot of reflection to kind of realize that maybe it's not the case. But yeah, so just some like actual practical things that you can do. So a cold shower or ice therapy basically is fucking king. If you get in the shower and turn it all the way to the cold, good luck being depressed in there, because you're literally just shitting yourself. It's so fucking cold. It's literally like death. Big up my friend Joshua. Unfortunately, he passed away not that long ago. He was super into the personal development and everything, and he would agree so much with me on that. It's like, yeah, you can't be depressed in a cold shower because you're just in survival mode. And it's what Hamza said as well. It's like, but he's like, when was the last time you climbed a tree, bro? Like, go climb a tree and tell me you're depressed. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to be depressed while you're climbing a tree. And I kind of get what he means, because you're just climbing a tree, innit? It's like, and then like some of Hamza's points is we're so disconnected from like this childlike innocence and wonder, and it's quite demonized. The trap of growing up, Key Parks has a video about, and it's like, it's kind of, the innocence kind of gets stripped away by like cultural ideas. But yeah, so this was quite a deep take on the depression and stuff, I guess. But, and I don't know if I mentioned, but yeah, at the top of the description I'll have more videos of the same nature when I do. I'll do a much more deep dive, but this is all I got at the minute. So yeah, there's the cold showers and the ice therapy and the climbing the trees and jumping over a puddle. That helps. So sort out your diet. Exercise, of course. Oh yeah, so it was saying, oh, SSRIs are just as good as exercise, or... That's bollocks, man. SSRIs are just poison. Exercise is... Traumatic has a lyric. Nature has its side effects. It makes your serotonin higher. I'm not wrong, they're incorrect. I promise you that I'm no liar. But yeah, they're very quick to get you on the pharmaceuticals, and this is, I've spoke about this many times. So there's shorts on my channel and on my TikTok where I was like, it's like a trap where like they just give children like class A's, and then they just like fuck their brain chemistry and turn them into addicts for profit. And it is literally like that's what they do. Like, it's not really a conspiracy. It's like you can literally see. Like, I don't know, but I think we shouldn't hand them out to children so easily. And I'll get censored for saying this, I think, which is quite strange. But I think the truth is, the truth like protects itself. The real secrets are self-protecting, says Terence McKenna. So, right, what other practical things are there? The Wim Hof breathing method. Do fucking breathing exercises. Do 30 of them, and on the last one, fully out, and hold for 1.5 minutes. Feel your body, come aware of your heartbeat. You need to get on that shit, bruv. And then that, it dissolves the boundaries, it gets you out of your thinking mind, and it resets the day. You know how when you go to sleep and you wake up, it's a brand new day, new beginning. Bro, my nose is fucked. Brand new day, new beginning. If you do the Wim Hof method, it's a guided breathing exercise on YouTube. It takes 11 minutes. Right, this is the thing, yeah. If you think that you're on this personal development, yeah, stop fucking around. If you cannot literally do the Wim Hof guided breathing exercise once, full blast, I'm not taking a piss, then just be off. You need to get on. Like, I put some fat posts on Facebook. I was like, you all think I'm crazy talking about this stuff, yeah? Like, the breath is literally psychedelic. And, again, we'll get into the psychedelics, but it's like, people, you're missing out. Got to do the practices. You can't have an opinion on what I'm speaking of if you just don't do the practices that are central to what I'm speaking on. So, the Wim Hof method, yeah, the breathe, it's very good for you, very good for your health. It's also correlated to the ice therapy and the cold showers. The same teacher, which is Wim Hof, the Iceman. Right, so there's that. Let's get into fucking psychedelics, mate. Just quick time, psychedelics, they have been proven. There's like a big fuck off resurgence happening right now, and so they've been illegal for, I think, like since 1960 or some shit, when they made it all illegal for the most part. But it's like we haven't been able to research the psychedelics because they've shut it off from even science, which is like unheard of for most things. But it's literally like the whole thing is just banned from the government of like any human, even for research purposes. But there's a massive psychedelic renaissance happening, which is why I know I'm ahead of my time in many aspects, and especially with the psychedelics, is I can't wait for it to when it fucking comes out, and I don't even need it to be proved, and I don't need no fucking article to tell me the healing properties of fucking psychedelics, because the cultures know, the path is known, I know, the people know, and this is where it's at. This is what's been taken from us, really. Psychedelics. It's really weird. It's like you think everything's been discovered. That is very funny to me. And I find it funny that psychedelics are still a secret. We still don't really know exactly what they are. But basically, non-toxic substances, such as mushrooms, grow out of the field. Mushrooms are probably the most best one for... I haven't done an awful lot with others, but... so, LSD, non-toxic as well. When I was 16, I took a dose of LSD. And I took a dose of LSD a week later, not depressed for like 2 years. I swear down, I was depressed the whole time. I took a dose, I saw beauty, I had like a mystical experience in my room while my parents were asleep upstairs. I was just in the dark downstairs being quiet. I took a tab of LSD. I didn't test it, however, so you must test your LSD. So to this day, I don't know if it was technically LSD. It was certainly a mystical experience. It felt very psychedelic. I've taken fake LSD, and that was not fucking good, and I could tell it was not LSD. But it was my first psychedelic experience. I didn't technically test it, so I don't know. But all I know is I took these 2 tabs that were supposedly LSD from a good friend, and they seemed to be LSD in my experience, even though I couldn't actually technically verify it with a or have any contrast to measure it with. But yeah, I was depression free for fucking ages after that, and it was very liberating. I remember the first trip was just like I just stared at the wall in silent darkness, and it was just like mystical, and I felt very electric, and sound started like it was just, and colors were so vibrant, and it was just like consciousness bending. And then the second time I remember just completely letting go, and I was like, nothing matters, and then walking away from that experience, like I had an afterglow that just never left. It was like I was just vibrant from that point onwards. So LSD and psychedelics, incredibly powerful for depression. You got to be very careful. There are many warnings, so I don't advocate it completely. But overall, they've completely straightened me out. Terence McKenna says the same. Many people says the same, and the Renaissance is happening now. So that is a key. Magic mushrooms I would recommend for beginners if you're going to pursue this path, because they are non-toxic. There's basically no lethal dose. Same really with DMT and LSD. You got to be like, obviously you can have psychological fuck-ups, but physically they're non-toxic for the most, unless you take like a fucking impossible dose. But yeah, mushrooms, and they will take you on a journey. They'll take you by your hand. You'll travel through your subconscious. You'll swim through your mind in a trance for like 8 hours or so. You'll think about your family, your life. It'll give you insights. The mushrooms, there's a strain called the mushroom teachers. So yeah, there's that. For me, those are the deepest ones. Even to this day now, the phase that I'm in now is like I forget who I am by going to my shit job and going on my phone too much. And then if I take like a wham dose of mushrooms, which for me, I'm quite extreme. I take like 7 grams, some shit. And they often sit me on my ass and pummel me with insights rapidly, and I quickly remember who I am. And I come out of that with an afterglow. And then if I can maintain that, which is what I'm trying to learn to do now, is to maintain the kind of God consciousness you encounter. And apart from like the depression and like you see infinite beauty, that can be healing within itself. There's actually physical healing, and obviously it's all connected. I've had many mucus purges and things. So yeah, psychedelics I think are the key for the most part, but it is quite difficult. There's many nuances. It depends what culture you're going to approach them in and what setting. So I've got videos on how I mastered magic mushrooms in the past, so go check out my channel and the playlist I got. So yeah, so those are just some tips. And then I'm sure there's more, like meditation. So meditation, again, I've been slacking on a lot of these, but meditation is really, and I feel like I almost shouldn't teach it, because I have not practiced for a fucking absurd amount of time, and I'm kind of embarrassed to be the spiritual guy who doesn't meditate, but I'll get back on it. So meditation for me, as far as I understand it, and but I need to get back on practicing it, and I think I'm going to be doing that like soon. I think it'll be very good for me. Basically, you just become a master of observation. So you sit there, again, when I said earlier, stop thinking, that is somewhat the goal. So mainly it's about observation. You want to bring your attention to the present moment, which is just the now. And in there, thoughts stop. And then it goes deeper into the metaphysical stuff about how your identity is a construct of your thoughts, and if you just heavily observe even anything, just visual phenomena, then so much just halts. Like Alan Watts has like a clip where he's like the seer, the knower and the known boundary dissolves, and that's what psychedelics do. They dissolve boundaries. You'll be terrified of how much your life is an illusion, how much like you believe is the case is actually just like some deep-rooted like survival instincts that you can actually untangle and find out deeper layers of. But yeah, it's just being the master of observation, and basically the main thing is you'll realise that you cannot stop thinking. Eckhart Tolle has an amazing clip. He's like, if you're in certain presence, right, everything's actually perfect. And then the mind goes, oh, remember, you have some things to be sad about, and it kind of like pulls you to the side and starts talking to you. Oh, that, blah, 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 you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's like, oh, it's like a constant hum in the background. And then you can learn, basically, like training a muscle. Like every time you realize you're thinking and bring back to presence, that's like 1 rep. And then the more you do that, the more sharp and the more aware you become to when you are thinking, and you kind of disidentify with the thought, and that kind of makes you immortal. Like when I was brushing my teeth, I don't know how old I was like 13, some shit. There was just this separation for no reason where I just went, I'm not my thoughts, and just like, it was weird. Because I see how the thoughts is like an emerging phenomenon, but it's almost like everything is one thing. Everything's just one happening. So it's like, it's just another phenomenon that's just as external as anything else, basically. Like, I can't stop them. They don't even feel like mine. They just kind of appear in my consciousness. And then you think that you are that dialogue. And that's what consciousness works about. But yeah, and then just in general, obviously, there's many things that maybe you do have a valid reason to be depressed about. If you follow actualize.org and the personal development scene, like Hamza and that, they promote like, because the flaw with personal development, I made a video about this called the trap of personal development, like the biggest flaw or something. You're taking it too seriously, and it's like it all begins with the assumption that there is actually a self and a self worth changing, which there is ultimately, and Hamza would agree. Just what the fuck are you on about with this spiritual woo woo shit? Just improve yourself. Right, but you got to be careful, because it's like a treadmill, and one of like the deepest things that you could, like, you've got to do that. Yeah, this is like actualize.org comes at it, or Leo Gura. He comes at it like, look, you can play the game completely sincerely. You're going to take it seriously for the most part, and you're going to play the game and construct the life you want to do and play in the matrix. But you also got to understand at the same time, simultaneously, that it's completely meaningless. And it's already complete in the present moment. So don't go out there pursuing shit like personal development treadmill full blast. The main thing is, yeah, if you're on the personal development treadmill, you need to also get on the meditation, because not only the meditation is about observation. There's meditation, again, actualize.org has a video about in particular called satisfaction meditation, where you just sit there and you practice being satisfied and fulfill with the present sensory experience, or just the present moment. You just sit here, and you basically you just come to understand that the present moment is always enough. And I realized this earlier. Like yesterday, I was having such a difficult day psychologically. And then this morning I was just like, if you really tune into the present, and like, it's weird because sometimes you're tuned out of the present and sometimes you're tuned in. When you're tuned in, that's when you feel open and expressive and vibrant in life. When you're tuned out of the present moment, that is when you're closed off. So there's 2 modes for me, for the most part, and for the most people. You're either open and pursuing the world and life and moving forward, or you're shut down in lazy depression mode, and you're kind of closed-minded off to the world. Why am I telling you that? Yeah, and when you actually accept the present moment and come to understand it, you kind of, when you accept it, acceptance is key. So yeah, the personal development's fine, and that is how you're going to get out of the rabbit hole of this depression shit. But you've also, just don't forget to fucking, gratitude is one of the keys, actually. There's so much to be grateful for. There's often resistance for me to just start writing a list of stuff to be grateful for. But I swear down, it could be a lot worse all the time. You could be on a fucking building site and it's freezing cold because it was the only job you could get at the minute. Or, like, shit, if you're being complacent now in this moment, yeah, wait until your roof just starts, like, pissing out with water. That's what happened to me the other day at my flat. The ceiling just started, like, pissing out with water. I went for a run and I came back and my whole flat was just flooded. And I was like, well, I wasn't even content before this happened. But now that it's happening, if it were to stop happening, everything go back to normal, I'd be very content. Now I have the contrast of how bad shit can get. So gratitude is fucking key. So there you go. I think that's it for the most part. Some leads. Jordan Peterson, that's one of the main people I found when I was younger. So Jordan Peterson, this is like just the whole self-help community. So it started with the depression, and then it evolved into like an awakening of the self-help and spiritual community and the psychedelics through like research. Like I said, I went, why am I depressed? Oh, diet. Okay. And then it just went deeper and deeper, and now I call myself Truth Till I Die. Or, well, yeah, because I seek truth, because there's truth is prosperous. Truth is giving. Truth is cleansing. Truth is like, I gotta answer this phone call. What else was I gonna say? I don't know, I gotta answer this phone call. Thank you for watching. I love you all.